Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
Yo and hello everybody. Welcome to another awesome episode of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast. I'm Mike, and we are now inside of a month until the 2024 National Sports Collectors Convention in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm getting pretty stoked. And you guys know how much I love the show. You know how much I love the experience. I love going, seeing friends, buying cards, all the things that go with the National. This may or may not be my last national episode. I did a few weeks ago with Garrett. We talked some tips about the show and what's kind of become an annual tradition. I think this is the third year in a row that we've done it, but I have got my good friend in the hobby, Craig Halbig, here. He is dealer extraordinaire, Mr. National. No, but Craig, good to see you. Welcome to the show again. Are you getting tired of being on the show or what?
No, it's a blast. I love it.
Good. Well, I love having you on because you and I start talking cards and man, we can just go and go. We both have a deep passion for it. You've channeled it into being a dealer at a bunch of shows and being able to, we said it just before the show, you get to buy collections, buy cards, keep what you want, sell the rest. And that, it's a lot of work. I know you do a ton of work to prep for the show or all the shows that you do, but especially the National. Are you looking forward to this year's show?
Yes, very much. We've been working on kind of getting ready since Strongsville, really, getting inventory together and just getting all the plans and figuring out our layout and what we want to do and what we want to bring, and got to make sure I've got the big cargo van because I'm bringing a van load of vintage. I mean, it's going to be packed.
How do you decide what to bring and what not to bring? What goes into that process?
Well, used to be whenever I just had the minivan, it was basically space, or if I had one booth. But now that I've got two booths and I've got this big cargo van, I'm just bringing most everything that I can. And then all the different years, I'm going to have thousands of each year from the 50s all the way up of extras besides what's in my books and in my boxes. So I've got backup inventory, and it's quite the undertaking, but it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. It's so much fun, and I get to see so many good friends and get to make more friends, and all the folks from the podcast come, and we just have a ball. I mean, I'm serious. It's so much fun.
So this inventory thing really has my wheels spinning a little bit because throughout the day, let's say Thursday, right, or Wednesday evening, as you're selling cards, how do you decide, you sell a certain card, if you have another one, do you kind of throw it now that the next one comes up and goes into the case and replaces that one? Is that done every day? Is that done when you have some free time? How does that work? How do you manage it during the actual show?
Well, the key is if you have the time. I've got a lot of times, let's say we've got somebody that's looking at 1964 tops and they're building a set. So they go through a book or maybe two of the books or a box. And then I've got another 3,000 64s that I'm bringing to hopefully have the time to fill the book, which I may not have. So, but they're all in numerical order. And then I can try to keep up with, for the set builders to try to keep the inventory there. So it's quite the undertaking, but I just want to make sure that I have as many cards as I can have there for the collector. And of course, our goal was to help is to help complete that set for the collector. So that's the exciting part. I kind of sometimes wish we had a big bell we could ring whenever somebody gets their last card to complete their set, because it's always, that's the goal. So,
dude, that's actually, you should bring like a little dinner bell, that like a little carol bell or something, and just,
that's right.
I think that would be a cool little gimmick, actually.
Yeah.
Might cost you a couple bucks at, Dollar General or whatever, but getting a cowbell or something that you can ring. It's
Right.
like every time an angel gets its wings, every time a collector completes a set, ding, 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 actually, that's one of the things that made me instantly like you when I first met you and Holly in 2018, I guess, or 19 in Chicago, I think it was, that we met for the first time. And you were, overcharging me for cards and whatever.
Yeah, that's easy. Not.
That's not you. But no, when I met you, I loved that was your mentality. That was your perspective on dealing, is having a collector's mindset, understanding that some collectors have been trying to collect sets for years, even, trying to find the perfect cards. And if you can help them do that, that brings a joy to your heart that says a lot about you as a person, and made me instantly like, yeah, I want to know. Oops, hold on. He's still there. I promise. That instantly made me want to be your friend. I'm like, I need to know this guy. Like, he's my kind of guy. So kudos to you for being that.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's a big deal. I mean, that's why we bring all the cards, I mean, if we can help somebody complete their set, I mean, that's what a lot of people are chasing, is they've got their lists, and, I want to complete my 53 Bowman color set. So I've got stacks and boxes of 53 Bowman color, and hopefully they can hit a few and find some, and we can help them at least get close,
Yeah.
And maybe get it completed for them.
So if you were to guess, how many total cards are you bringing to the show? Just ballpark it. 100,000? Are you bringing 100?
A lot more than that.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did you have to get your van retrofitted with super amazing shocks and like struts to make sure it doesn't collapse under the weight?
So when I've got a Toyota Sienna minivan, and when I would load that thing up, I would get really nervous, because I take the seats out and it's completely packed. I mean, so most everything that you see at the National, saw me at the National, like in Chicago or even last year, I had the cargo van, but that could almost fit in that Toyota Sienna minivan, and it was like Jenga getting it all in there. But with this big cargo van, I can even bring more books, more boxes, more shelves, so I can have more inventory in the back. And so, yeah.
Dude, that is crazy. And you got to keep track of all that. Do you have do you track what you're selling, or is it just kind of is what it is? Like, how do you keep track of your inventory? And man, oh yeah, we sold 64 tops today, or there's no way you can do that because it's happening so fast, right?
Right. I mean, like last year there was 4 of us, and it was a struggle just to get a chance to get away, to go to the restroom or go, to get away. So, I mean, it's sometimes I'll write things down or try to, keep track, but in the back of my mind, I'm kind of, getting an idea of what's selling. But, at the National, for us, it's almost just everything. I mean, the more variety that I can bring, the better, because it's kind of like on eBay, there's a market for everything. Somebody's looking for something. With the National, there's somebody that's going to come by the booth that's looking for whatever. And hopefully I'll be able to help them. I may not, but at least I can maybe point them in the right direction, but hopefully we can help them out.
I'm asking a lot of questions that I've honestly never asked you before, so they're all popping in my head right now. Sure. So I hope I'm not catching you off guard, but do you go into the show, whether it's on a daily basis or in totality, and think, okay, here's our sales goal. Here's what we'd like to get out of this. Cause you do have certain costs that you're paying for the booths, the hotels, the food, or whatever.
It is very expensive, but I really don't worry about the sales part of it. I mean, if we're busy, which I know we will be, and we're helping people complete their sets or buy cards that they like, and they're having fun and enjoying it, it's a win. I don't have to worry about the rest. That's why we do it.
it all works out, right? It ends up.
Sure it does. I mean, but it's all about really, if we've got a lot of people there and they're buying cards and they're having fun and we're completing sets, then, it's good.
Do you know how so many people over the years that you've been on this podcast and we've been friends and they know that we're friends and they'll come up to me, hey, Mike, love your podcast, but tell me where Craig's booth is because I want to go see Craig because I want to deal. Collectors like dealing with nice people. At the end of the day, I may or may not get the best deal, but I'm gonna have a great interaction. And that's what you're gonna get with Craig, guys. If you work with Craig, he's gonna treat you right. He's gonna be fair, and he's gonna try to help you as best he can. And I have people all the time, Craig. Another testament to you. Man, where's Craig's table? I want to go see his stuff. And once they go to your table, then they are, where's Craig again? They'll come see me again. Like, where's Craig at this show? I know he's here. I heard he's here. Where is he? And
great,
so you've really worked hard to build that reputation in the vintage community that you're all those things that I just described you as, because it's true. I'm not blowing smoke up Craig's butt. He's just that way. And he would never say all these nice things about himself, but it's just true. And collectors know that. They can see through dealers that are kind of swindlers or just slimy or whatever.
Don't have a smile. A lot of these guys are just kind of,
they're just grumpy.
You can tell when you're going to get to a table or get to a booth and looks like it's going to be fun. I mean, it's baseball, it's sports cards. I mean, we should be having fun. And that's the vibe that you should have when you go to the show or when you go to a certain dealer or booth. This guy's here to help me and he would like to sell me some cards and he's going to be, that's the way it should be. I mean,
totally.
Yeah.
I will give you guys a piece of advice. If you go to Craig's table at the National or you see him at any show, always negotiate with Craig. If Holly gets involved, you're paying double book or don't, no, Holly's great too. You have a great tag team, great whole team. I know your kids help you sort cards and it's a family affair for sure with all the stuff that you deal with. But I'm excited about the show. I'm excited to go back to Cleveland, honestly, which sounds crazy. I don't love once you leave the IX Center, but I remember the IX Center was my favorite venue once you're inside the show. Atlantic City was actually a great venue once you were in the show. It's everything else, right?
Yeah.
I actually liked Atlantic City inside, the way it was set up and everything. But it'll be interesting to see because the IX Center has been completely renovated. There's no more Ferris wheel. There's no more, I don't know how big the aisles are going to be. It used to be quite spacious in the two previous times I had been to the Cleveland National. And so it's all reconfigured. It's all different. And so I have I wouldn't even call it concerns. I'm curious how it's going to be. I'm sure they're going to do a good job. As you head into the show, you're frantically busy. What do you think's popular right now? What do you think guys are going to be looking for? Do you have any pulse on that, finger on the pulse of that?
I mean, I'm just going to stay in my lane and do what we've been successful with, with the set building and just sticking with, the vintage stuff, starting with the T206s all the way up into the 70s. And I may bring a few complete sets and, some vintage wax and just different stuff, but I think it's going to be a great show. I mean, I don't ever have any doubts when it comes to the National, and we have been preparing. So I'm going to keep getting more and more stuff ready and just, we're going to have fun. And I think it's going to be a great show. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, Yeah.
Let's talk about the vintage wax. Cause that's something you've kind of started doing relatively recently, I guess. I mean, I know you've had vintage wax for a long time and you love it, but in terms of, wow, I'm really looking for this stuff with the opportunity to find it and get it back out into the market. How's that process been? And what have you been doing to build your inventory there?
Just buying a few items. I'm going to bring, and again, with me being a collector, it's, what do I want to sell and what do I want to keep? And it's like, and I've got a lot of stuff that I really would like to keep, but I actually, for the first time, got to go up and see Steve Hart's operation up there, and really impressive. I had some stuff that they wrapped, had an 80 Tops wax box, an 83 and an 84, and I had an 86 Tops traded case. And I had a bunch of those. They'll wrap those, and some rack packs, and had an Eddie Murray rookie on a 78 rack. I wanted him to do. It's in my collection, just different things. But that is really an impressive operation up there that he has. I mean, I was really impressed. I went by they have like a warehouse, and then they have their shop, their retail shop, and everybody I dealt with was great. I mean, I was really impressed. So, and I'd like to start getting into that a little bit more. I think it's just a matter of finding the stuff,
Yeah.
I think about the collections I've bought over the years. It's never really anything that I've found a lot of. You can find it once in a great while, but I haven't really hunted for it. But recently I've been able to buy a little bit of stuff. And so I'm going to bring a little bit of that to the National and see how that goes.
Do you sell a lot of complete sets? I've never asked you that. I know you do tons of singles, but do you ever just sell a complete set?
Once in a while I will. I may bring a few complete sets. I may bring maybe a 71 set or my 60 sets. A lot of times I don't, or I have in the past, maybe down in Dallas. I think I sold a couple sets. I may sell I have a lot of oddball, like 71 Tops trios, the basketball set. I'll have maybe bring one of those and some other oddball sets, but a lot of complete sets I don't, unless I've got a lot of one particular year. I may sell it. But
do you find that the breakup value is better than the whole set value? Is that typically why?
For a lot of the sets. Now, if over the years, if you kind of watch Heritage and some of these auction houses, you can get an idea of what complete sets sell for because they sell so many of them, and the price of complete sets it's crept up this last couple of years to where it was at. So, I mean,
I remember one of my first goals when I started getting into the auction house world was finding some really cool autographs that you could only find in that area using auction houses. But what I discovered was they would put 72 through 79 top sets complete, and you could buy them and you'd get them super cheap because it's unique, right? It's putting
right.
They group these sets together, and I was trying to fill from my birth year 73 I had some gaps, mainly in the 70s of sets that I needed to the early 80s, and I was able to get screaming deals. I found one. I was able to get like 73 through 78. I don't even remember. It was crazy cheap, and I remember just couldn't wait to write the check kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It would have cost me way more to buy them individually. Even years ago when I did this was 10 or 12 years ago. It was still cheap relative to what they were worth individually. I think people have gotten wise to that, and you don't see that as much anymore in auction houses where they'll group, especially anything pre-1980. It's rare to see that.
Yeah.
So
those sets are getting popular. The 70 sets are becoming more popular, I think.
Yeah.
So people are wanting to buy those individually, and I'll probably bring some 70 sets, but that's a lot of people are collecting the 70s right now, late 60s into the 70s. They're completing their sets or they're buying sets. So.
Well, I know, like for me, if I said, okay, Mike, if money wasn't an object, space wasn't an object, how would you collect? And the truth is, I would love to have, let's take 73 Tops. I would love to have that set complete in a box. I would want another set in a binder, and I would want an unopened wax box, and I'd love to have another Hall of Fame run of all the Hall of Famers slabbed.
Wow. Yeah, that would be nice.
Wouldn't that, like that, to me, that's the whole thing. And I would do that for every year, which is just, again, if space, money weren't an issue, which they are in everybody's case, we all have space limitations, money limitations, but that's kind of the ideal way I would collect if I could. And I'm kind of starting to do that. I've got all the sets in boxes through 73 down to 73. Got a 72 set in a binder, 71. Now I'm working backwards, They're all going in binders, though. I'm not even putting them in boxes because I want to look at them, But now I'm like, I don't have any more room for these bloody binders, so that'll be solved. But Go ahead.
So you can build onto the house there. You need more space.
I'm going to move eventually. So that's the goal, is to build my own card mahal where I build it specifically with all this in mind and how I want to store things and display things and access my collection, you know?
Right.
I had another cool question. I can't remember. I'm not a very good interviewer, but yeah, thinking about.
We were talking about the national too. I don't know. We were looking at that interactive map. I mean, that's really.
Yeah. So
the map is really cool.
You pointed this out to me literally just the other day. We were talking about it, and I want to bring this to people's attention. If you have never been to Cleveland, this even though I've been to Cleveland, this is a new kind of deal that the National is doing. And what it shows you, I'm going to share my screen here so you guys can see this. But on the website for NSCC show, there's this interactive map that's under. If you go here, I'll just go from the beginning. I'm on the homepage now. You go under Cleveland 2024, and it says new interactive map, and this is definitely new. And if you click on this, it shows you all the different locations for the things you might be looking for. And you can zoom in on it, you can zoom out. This is slick, isn't it, Craig?
Yeah. You can click on each individual booth and it'll tell you whose booth it is. Yeah.
So who's this up here? Ripping Vintage Packs. That's not you.
That's right next to me. Yeah. That's Kirk Christensen and Brandon, those guys.
Lake Country Cards. They're good. Let's see. No.
Go to the right.
Over here?
Left one right there.
Ah, there you are.
Yeah. 143 and 145. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you'll be right over here.
Yeah.
So as people will be coming in down here at the show entrance, make a hard right, go past PSA, and you'll see Craig and Holly over here smiling and
party back in the corner.
Partying back in the corner. Are you? First question: are you happy with your location? Do you even care? It's like it is what it is. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, when I remember whenever we were in Chicago, we had that, they called it the red carpet, and we were way back in the back there. I mean, it was nonstop. So, I mean, I don't think it really matters. I think people, and especially if this map is great, so people are going to be able to find us, or people that I've known in the hobby for 30 years, or all those people, they're going to be able to find us. There's a dealer list too.
Yeah, you can go right over here on the left, and I can click on this, and it'll show me right where. If I click on it, it'll show me right where it is.
Yeah, we're right by PSA. We're right by the food, and we're right by. There's, I think, restrooms right there, so it's kind of convenient there.
Yeah, there's a lot of freaking table.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot. Like the Ferris wheel was right here last time. There was another entrance. Like it looks very different than what I remember. Again, that configuration idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just excited. I hope the rows are wider than this looks, because this looks pretty tight. But one of the things I liked about Cleveland before was it felt very spacious, and it was incredibly well lit.
Mm-hmm.
The inside. Sometimes places can be kind of dark if you're, that big of space, right? But that's where you're going to be, is right over here. And if you guys are looking for your favorite dealer besides Craig, and here's Heritage and Panini, and if you're love to go to the Topps booth, and everybody has their things, right? So you've got a lot of the big wax dealers, Dave and Adams and Blowout over here. Upper Deck is still in card. No, I'm just kidding. Baseball Card Exchange, which is great, who you were talking about earlier.
Yep.
Down here, you got Beckett. SGC I saw them earlier. Am I missing them?
Right over the far. Go left.
Oh, right there. Yeah. SGC back on the back wall there. Then you got the Case Break Pavilion down here. The Autograph Pavilion over here. I mean, this is a very huge floor. And yeah, this is a really cool interactive map that I think can be valuable to collectors as you're kind of trying to navigate your way through it all.
Yeah, it's neat.
Good stuff. So yeah, this is on the website. Go check it out. This is on the nsccshow.com website. Super slick. So yeah, that's where Craig is. And his whole team that'll be there.
Yep.
Is it going to be for y'all again this year?
There'll be 4 of us. Yep. We're going to try to catch a Indians game. I think we'll get there Monday night, and then we'll set up Tuesday. The early setup is on Tuesday, and then we're going to try to catch a Indians game Tuesday night. So that should be fun.
Nice. Yeah. I think we're going on Tuesday. We're going to go to Canton. I've never been to Canton. So we're going to.
Oh, that'll be cool.
About an hour drive, to drive down there. I've never seen that. So I've been to Cleveland games. I've been to Pittsburgh. There's a Pittsburgh game Tuesday night. Like we were thinking about driving to Pittsburgh, which is like 3 hours each way. But like, yeah, I've done those. I'd rather do something I haven't done at all.
All right.
So
It'll be a good time.
That's what we're probably going to do. And then the show starts up Wednesday and goes nuts. What's your favorite day of the show? Do you have a favorite day of the show?
Gosh, no. I mean, the sneak peek, it just kind of, I guess the excitement kind of builds up to the sneak peek. And then from there on, every day is just crazy. I mean, I think the last several years, it hasn't really slowed down, until Sunday. It's a little bit slower, but not really slow. I mean, as far as the show, so there's not really any particular day, I guess. It's pretty chaotic whenever, just all those dealers and everybody trying to get set up. And a lot of times they'll let you drive in and get to a certain area. I'm not sure how they're going to do it there in Cleveland, and up in Chicago at Rosemont, we're able to drive right. I was able to drive the cargo van right up to close to where I'm set up. So that saves us a lot of time. So it's chaos when they try to get everybody in there, and there's hundreds of dealers lined up outside to get in, and everybody trying to get to their booths. And everybody's kind of in a mad rush, trying to get, even though they have time, but it's just the excitement and the stress, and hopefully you don't get stressed out because, we're supposed to enjoy it, but it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I remember last year, it felt like Friday was the busiest day, which was usually the weekend. Saturday is usually kind of traditionally the busiest day. And it felt like last year, Friday was the most, I should say, and I only know it from I
think so too. I agree with you on that. I think Friday was probably like the most traffic, I think,
right.
Was Friday last year.
Exactly. The most people. And it felt very, very crowded on Friday. And even Thursday, but I think that people now look at the national, people know you can't go for one. I mean, you can go for one day, and you should. If you can only go one day, but that it's an experience, right? It's man, I want to go for 3 or 4 days and really make sure I see everything and do everything and see everybody and meet everybody and all that stuff. Are you coming to the get together on Thursday night this year?
I'm hoping to. I need to get the details on that. Hopefully we can get out of there at a decent time from the show. But yeah, we should be able to.
Well, it is on. It's at an American Legion, which is about 3 minutes from the IX Center.
Okay, yeah. Well, then we'll hopefully be there.
We had to do an off-site area. Dr. Beckett will be there. Tons of guys that are on YouTube that do content creation. Chris Sewell will be there. He's a big content creator.
Oh, yeah.
/ baseball collector, investor, dealer in that order. And a lot of those guys have chipped in to make it a great event, and everybody's kind of contributing and being great. And I know there'll be a lot of people that'll want to see you and say hi to Craig. What time's my autograph session at your booth? What time are we doing that?
Whatever time you'd like.
Now, you will see me from time to time. Craig is very hospitable and lets me, sit down and rest every once in a while behind his booth, and occasionally you'll see me actually slinging cards or whatever for people. Yep. But Craig is incredibly gracious to me, and so I know a lot of people see you, Craig, and go, "Oh, you're the one on that podcast," and I know you laugh every time. Like, how can somebody?
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
how can somebody know that? But
yeah, you're welcome to come. Hopefully, everybody will get to stop by and visit. And hang out, and we'll have a good time for sure.
Absolutely. Well, we may come back to the National later. I want to dive into. I want to completely go 180 on you.
Okay.
And talk about something else in the hobby. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about kind of where you see the grading landscape going from a dealer perspective later. Okay. So we really have two more topics that I want to discuss with you. While I have you, I might as well talk to you about these.
Sure.
But I've caught some rumblings through comments and stuff on videos about the way we define vintage, right? And traditionally it's been, 1980 and back. I'll just use that as kind of a generic description of vintage.
Sure.
And the reality is we, that's now 44 years ago. Is it not fair to say that cards from the 80s and even the 90s could be considered vintage? I mean, we were defining vintage as 80 and back in the early 90s when those cards were only 10 or 12 years old, and we haven't adjusted that definition since. Basically, it's kind of just stuck. That definition is stuck, and I've always advocated for defining the cards as eras. We think pre-war era. People do think that. They think pre-war, and they think of that as an era. Anything before, 1941 is pre-war. So 41 play ball and back is all considered pre-war. Then you have this gap where essentially no cards were created until we had 48 Bowman, and then 49 Leaf and 49 Bowman, and off we go, right? The Topps era. So what would be a good definition of 48 to 80? Just the vintage era? Is it? I mean, I don't know that I have a good answer for this. I've
heard the debate. I mean, and I think we've all been to card shows, and I go to other shows just to go because I enjoy going to shows to buy cards, and I'll ask somebody, and they'll say, I'll ask, do you have any vintage? And they'll say, yeah, I've got some vintage right here. And it might be late 70s into the 80s, or it might be 50s and 60s. And I think vintage is, I guess, really I'm 52. So for me, I started collecting in the late 70s, but vintage for me is probably pre-1980. But vintage for somebody who's maybe 35 or 40, maybe in the late 70s into the early 80s. I think it's subjective, and I think that's okay. I mean, there's no reason for us to say, well, that's not vintage. Well, if that's their opinion and they consider that vintage, then I'll say, well, I'm looking for maybe something a little bit older. But I have seen those debates, and everybody wants to say what this or that is. But I think if somebody thinks vintage is 1980, 81, 82, then that's okay. But maybe my opinion, vintage is 1956. I mean, it's, everybody has their own opinion. So
I do think you can I want to be the tip of the spear of this, by the way, because I want to erase some confusion within the hobby. I want to make it more easily defined. But I also don't want to be rigid about it from the standpoint that, well, because I knew vintage is 80 and before, that's what everybody has to believe. I don't want to be that way. And so I think by putting these demarcation points as eras, not old or new, right? Because if it's not vintage, then it's modern, right? If we only have two ways to describe cards, and now we've got ultra modern, which means really new, right? And you and I have been buying cards
shiny
from 80 plus. So in 81 Topps was modern, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's vintage. So things do change over time. Things get older. Cars become classic cars instead of the car you buy on the lot, and that's a 20-year definition of what becomes a classic car. Is officially, it's 20 years from the time it was released. And so if we did that, 2004 Topps would be considered vintage or classic, and so that seems weird to me, but I'm trying to stay open-minded about it. And to me, the era definition makes it almost, I want to come up with some universal descriptive educational way to tell people, okay, these cards are from this era, and then everybody kind of knows that's the era you're talking about. And I haven't I've heard there was somebody that did a video about it and came up with this. This isn't my idea. I admit I heard it years ago. This debate has been raging for, this isn't new, right? And the comment that got me going was somebody said, "Oh, you're just thinking like an old man that vintage has to be 80 and before, you know?" And I'm like, well, first of all, I am an old man. And secondly, okay, give me a different solution. I'm
Sure.
willing to listen. And somebody did a video on it where they had really great names for the different eras. And God help me, I've looked for that video. I can't remember who did it. I can't remember I should have written it all down because I thought it was incredibly brilliant in the moment when I watched it. And I didn't retain that. And it's irking me, you know, over the time I've thought about that. Like, I remember a guy came up with some stuff that I thought was genius. You know, that could really redefine the hobby if that stuck. And maybe it just doesn't, maybe it's not important. Truthfully, I may be making a mountain out of a molehill when it's like nobody really cares but me. And maybe even I don't care. I don't know. I like the cards I like, no matter what year they're from or what you call them.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably actually the most accurate. But for people coming into the hobby, if you said, hey, this is pre-war is pretty easy. Like, okay, it's before World War II. So anything before World War II is in this era of cards called pre-war. And then you have sub-segments of tobacco cards and, you know, play balls and double plays and Gaudies and all kinds of stuff. I think you can create subsets within pre-war.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we have the vintage era or whatever era we're going to call it, 48 to 80, okay, that's an era. But within that, you'll have different subsets. And then you have a different era for the next 20 years. And, you know, kind of block off the eras so that it's easily defined and someone can understand and learn. I don't know. I'm probably just full of crap.
I've always, you know, and, you know, you look at the years, you know, let's say the 70s era, the 60s era, or the 50s era. That's kind of always the way but I've never really thought of, you know, for me, if I go to a show and I'm looking for older cards, I mean, you know, it's usually 70s and back.
Yeah, but if you went up to a dealer not knowing what's on their table and you just talk to the dealer and say, I want some old cards. Well, their definition of old could be a decade ago.
Sure,
that's
could.
old to them. You know,
usually 80s or 70s. Some people will say that, you know, and
right.
Some people will say older. I mean, everybody's kind of got their own opinion. Like you're saying, there's nothing really set in stone. I mean, I don't think that, okay, this has got to be vintage, but maybe there would be maybe there's a way to simplify it, you know, by era, like you're saying. You need to come up with that.
I'll work on that. Maybe we'll put a committee together.
Yeah.
Over a beer at the National, and we'll all try to figure it out. At the get together. We may
get together. We can drink beer and figure that out. Yeah.
Well, at least we'll drink beer. We may not figure it out, but
the drinking the beers, that's important. Yes.
I've solved a lot of problems kind of tipsy. You know,
I have too.
A lot of world problems. Things become clearer when they shouldn't be. When you've had because your inhibitions go away, and you're like, you just say whatever you're thinking. Like, yeah, I mean, the Ricky Henderson's a crap card rookie, you know, or whatever, which is not true. Okay, let's get back to grading in our final few minutes here of discussion. Because I was thinking about earlier when we were talking about the National, obviously PSA will be there grading cards. We don't know what their prices are going to be at. SGC is not grading cards. They've announced that. They're going to be just taking submissions to take back to Boca. CGC will be grading cards on site, and I'm sure Beckett will too. They have every year, you know, that I've known them, and not much demand, so they can probably handle the cards that get brought to them. But the landscape of grading, how in your mind, when you get a collection and you think, okay, I'm going to separate these I'm going to grade some of these, or these are gradable. How do you make that determination? Is it, you know, hey, I don't have any of these graded, and even if they come back mid-grade, I'd like to have some examples of this card graded, or this looks just too sharp not to grade. I think it'll come back a high grade. So that's question one to you, and I'll shut up in a second to let you answer. How do you decide? And do you see yourself gravitating towards a certain company or another right now, trying to get cards back to build your graded inventory for your shows, especially the national coming up?
Okay, I'd say well, I'll go to a couple of things that I've done here recently, and I have sent quite a few cards off to get graded to PSA and to SGC. I mean, for me, I'm definitely more of an SGC guy than I am PSA, just because I've been sending cards to PSA since they started grading cards, and for me, they've not been as consistent as they used to be. So it's nice. I remember years ago, I used to even do the Chicago Sun-Times and some of those shows. Years ago, I would have a lot of graded inventory of commons, helping people build their sets, graded sets. And I don't know that many people are doing that anymore, because it's hard to get decent grades on commons if a guy wants to build a set, with PSA. I just had a submission of 167, 68, and 69s that I sent in, that the stars I'd already sent, I got 8s, 9s, like the 68 tops, the superstars card that's got mantle. I got a PSA 10 on that card, and I saved all the commons. I thought I'll send those in at some point. Well, I sent them in here a few months ago, and I got 8s, a few 9s, and 110. And I know that there was even a couple 7s in there, and it didn't have any really rhyme or reason. But when I send cards to SGC, I can pretty well get close to what I think that I'm going to get on my grades with SGC. And when I decide what cards I want to grade, that was kind of I had all those commons, and I thought I'd give it a shot. And there are some good cards there, and I'm going to bring all those to the national. And there's some stars and stuff, but usually I'm looking for Hall of Famers or Hall of Fame rookie cards, but a lot of the cards you'll see that I'll have, it may be a 5 or a 6 or a 7, but the eye appeal is great. The centering is great. The card's really nice. And those are the cards that I like to get graded, that have great eye appeal. And trying to price those cards is just, it's agony, because if I've got a PSA 6, let's say 61 tops Billy Williams rookie or whatever it is, maybe mine's centered. So I've got to go and look at 4 or 5 other PSA 6s. Maybe some of them aren't centered. Maybe some of them have got print defects, and that's why the price on that 6 sold for this. I mean, to me, that's the most aggravating part of grading, is that we're sending cards into PSA to get graded or SGC, and we're trying to evaluate what it's worth. Well, a PSA 6 obviously is not worth what every PSA 6 is worth. It's all about what the card looks like. So you have to evaluate what all these cards look like to figure out what the value of the card is. And I usually do that with the collector. Like if someone comes to my booth to buy a card, they usually have the same tools that I have to be able to find the value, and we'll look at it together to try to figure out what it's worth. So there again, we're just, we're getting one person's opinion of what this card should grade. So, I mean, when you think about it, does it really make sense? I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, and I know we do it, but anyway, that's, I still bring some graded, but, majority of the stuff that I have is raw, and people can look at the cards, evaluate what they think the grade is, and I've got the price on there, and usually it's a pretty nice card, clean card, and I sell a lot of raw cards. There's really not a lot of debating. They get a chance to look at it, and they can decide if they like the card or not. Is it going to fit in my set, or does this look good enough for me? It does. Okay. If it doesn't, hopefully there's 4 or 5 of that same card, and they can pick one out that's maybe nicer, or maybe it's not as nice, a different price point. So
how do you price your commons, do you kind of think, okay, this is a $5 common, this is a $2 common, do you group them? Because you can't look at every single card. It's a lot of cards. How do you do that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, so I look at the Beckett just to get an idea of what the series is. Okay, so let's say 19. Let's do 62 tops or 61. 67's fine. Any of those. We know we've got the high numbers, and I'm going to have those in the showcase because those are higher dollar. Then the other ones, I may have cards 1 to 400. Those might be $1.25 a card or $1.50 a card or something like that. And I may have 2 or 3 albums, and then I'll probably have 2 or 3,000 more in the back. And then all I have is, okay, cards 1 to 400, these are $1. And then people just go through and they pick out the cards that they want, and they know they're $1 a card. Now, some cards in a book might have a sticker on them, and I give people a notepad and they just write down what the price is, and then I just take their word for it and I total it up, and there we go. So it's pretty easy process. But yeah, the pricing of the commons, they're not very expensive to, you start getting, I'm bringing some 52 high numbers. I've got raw and graded 52 highs, and some of those get pretty expensive.
Right.
But, a lot of your commons in the 60s and 70s are not very expensive. So a lot of them are pretty reasonable.
Are you going to have your business cards there with the notes on the back again?
Yep. I got the business cards, and, they can put my booth number or any information they want on the back of the business card. So
did you find that? I haven't even asked you this question, or maybe I did. Did you get feedback on that was handy, or no?
It was. I mean, it really helped people be able to write down their notes of maybe what they were looking at or what card they were looking at. Sometimes especially at a big show, they'll jot down maybe where my location's at, or you're by PSA or wherever your location is. So yeah, then, having that, my business cards and being able to write the stuff on the back was handy in Strongsville too. And I did that. I think I had that last year at the National.
Last year, I think we talked about it. We brainstormed. It came up on a show we were talking about, or even after or before, I can't remember. And dude, I would love to just be able to, if I like your booth, I want to write down what I found there and have some lines and be able to make it make sense. And you're like, hey, I could do that. Whatever.
It's worked out great.
That's good. That's good. Well, man, what a great just conversation. You and I could talk cards and theories, and we could solve all the world's problems if we had enough time, but we don't. And I do appreciate your time today, Craig, as always. And we'll be together in a few weeks, 4 weeks, give or take. And I'm looking forward to that. So, man, guys, it's coming. The show. I hope there was even more than just the show. So I hope you guys got more than just show talk. Craig and I tackled a few different topics, but thanks, Craig. Thank you everybody out there. Yeah, that watched, listened, all that good stuff. Leave comments below, and make sure when you get to the National in Cleveland this year, you go check out Craig at his booth, How Big Sports Cards. So, guys, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon, and keep collecting.